All right. It is time for our nighttime sketch session. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. So, let's see. Let's first of all let's put some music on while some people hop on here. Then let's open up our gear pack, and we are going to be using a normal big pen, a round stick big pen. Okay, these are super cheap. You can get them anywhere. I like using a little rubber little cover for it. And we might use a little bit of watercolor, or we might use a highlighter. So I like to keep everything super simple. I like keeping my art materials so that I can actually access them at any time. So a little set of watercolors like this, right, is not going to be very expensive. You can probably find like one at a thrift shop or a 99-cent store, and you'd be able to get like one or two of the little, you know, these guys, right? And you can just pop them out, boop, 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 and then just take the ones that you like with you. I'm using one of these as a reservoir. Like, I just like this one. This one used to be like a little circle one. I just broke the piece so I could actually fit it into my kit. Alright. Okay. There you go. Alright, so now that we know what we're going to draw with, let's go and start drawing. Now, before we start the lesson, we are going to be drawing... What are we going to be drawing? We're going to be drawing heads today. Okay? But before we start, I need you guys to hit that little share button. Hit the little share button, and when we get to, let's say, 50 shares, we will start our lesson today. Okay? So if you guys want to start doing that, meanwhile, I'm going to be prepping by creating the assets that are going to be needed. Okay. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. All these parts are going to be needed. So I'm just going to be starting to draw it until when we get to 50, I'll start the lesson. Rule of thirds. Almost there. Was getting the bike registered and everything easy? Yeah, it was actually really, really easy to do all that stuff. Now getting it in the insurance is just a matter of time, but it's gonna happen within the next day or so. All right, so we got to 50. So I'm going to explain to you guys why it's actually really, really easy to learn how to draw faces by using a simple rule called the rule of thirds, right? The rule of thirds is going to consist of a way to position your features within your face. Any given shape, regardless of the style, is going to just be able to be turned into a face incredibly easy by these simple steps. 1. Your top shape, your middle, and your bottom consist of the entirety of your head. Now, depending on what angle you're looking at, in this case 3/4, this is front, profile, and 3/4 again. Okay? So, depending on where you're looking at, your face can be divided into 3 parts. One of these parts in specific is going to be the most important. This middle part right here is going to be essentially where your eyebrows, your nose, and your eyes are going to be at. Okay? This area is going to be called your feature zone. Your feature zone is going to consist of any styling that you want to give your character, but it's more of a placement theory than it is a style theory. If you can fit your eyebrows, your eyes, and your nose in that 1/3 of your section, it's going to make it much, much, much easier to be able to position everything else on your face. Because you're not worrying about a gigantic amount of space. You're just worrying about these 1 or 2 little features that fit within each area. Right? So in this case, my feature zone consists of a bunch of things. Consists of the top line being my eyebrow line, the bottom line being, it's not necessarily the bottom of the nose, it is the bottom of the nose canal that consists of your skeletal system. Right? You know that little tiny little divot in the middle right here? This is where your cartilage comes out. Right? So that is the bottom line. That is what this bottom third is. The reason that I say that is because you can have something have a really large nose and cover a little bit of the mouth area. But it connects back to this area anyways. So it's still coming out of this little tiny crevice that you have in between your eye sockets. Right? So understanding that concept and why that bottom third is there, that is a very important thing. Because if you misplace that and you start putting the nose a little bit below that or above that, it's going to throw off your proportions and it's just going to look weird. Okay, so now that we know what that bottom line is, so let's do like a little graph. A third. So this is going to be your forehead and hairline, right? This top third is going to be hair and forehead. Here, you're going to have your nose canal. You're going to have your eye sockets, your cheekbones, and your ear, all within that little space, which translates to your eyebrows, your eye, and your nose. This is the feature zone. Eyes, nose, ears, eyebrows. Right? And then down here, we have our mouth and our chin. So now let's see what we can do if we change these up a little bit. Like let's say we have a random shape, right? And now we want somebody that has like really small eyes, but we want a really large mouth. So if I need a large mouth, I just make the mouth part bigger, the eye part smaller, and then I start drawing my design. I know my ear has to fit right here between these two. I know this is my forehead and my hair, so the hair can come up from the forehead. Right? This is going to be my mouth area, so I can draw my mouth as big as I want because now I have the space for it. This is still going to be where my nose is, so my nose still has to connect right there because that's still the area that I designated for my nose. This is going to be my eyes, or my eyebrows, and my eyes have to be in here. And now we have our character doing exactly what we wanted in a very simple, easy way of understanding it. Now I can always zoom in a little bit. Right. So let's do it again. Let's start with a normal shape, any shape, okay? We're gonna start dividing this depending on what our character needs. In this case, let's say we need a character with a big, like a child. So big eyes, big forehead. Okay? So if we need a big forehead, we're going to make the forehead line much bigger. We need big eyes, so we're gonna make the eye line, or the eye third, much bigger. And then this part's gonna be our chin and our mouth. In children, the chin and the mouth is not very prominent, so you don't have to worry too much about that. The ear fits within that third line. This is gonna be my forehead line, my hairline. So I know that my hair is gonna be up here. Okay. This is still gonna be my eyebrow line. And my nose and everything has to fit within this area. So now I'll just draw things inside that area. And my mouth just has to fit right here. And just by dividing it in thirds, I was able to draw something relatively cool, relatively fast, and it didn't really take much effort. Let's try it again. Third. Let's see. Let's make this, I don't know. No, make it a profile. So my nose has to fit within this area. Right. This can be my mouth. My eyebrows. When you're drawing on a profile, just draw within the first fourth of your face. Right? If you have a profile shape, the easiest way to get about it is just draw in the first fourth of your face, of your shape. If you divide everything into a 4, boom, boom, boom. If you do this, boom, 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 divided 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to draw profiles, draw all your stuff within the first third. Okay? And then you will have actual proper proportions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to have more accurate looking, features, draw them within the first fourth. Okay, more, let's do like a pinup or something like that, right? When it comes down to pinups and stuff, I like to start with the first top 2 parts. The reason being is that I don't know what my chin is going to be like or what angle I'm going to end up with at the end. So I want to make sure that I keep that side of the face a little bit on backward. So whenever I'm drawing a pinup, I start with a sphere. I split it in 2. I have my nose right here, so now I can draw my eyes. Right? My nose still has to be within this little section, so I draw my nose. My eyes can be whatever kind of like cool styling that I feel like doing that day. And then from here, the edge of here is my ear, because it's still my feature zone. And then I can decide what type of mouth I want to do. Like if I want like a really small jaw, I'll just make my character look like that. If I want something a little bit more detailed, I would go ahead and do it a little bit more detailed. I can always add mass to my drawing if I need to add it to change the styling a little bit, right? And then this area right here, that's where my mouth is going to be. And it can be split in half or however you feel like actually like thinking about doing that. But that's how you go about drawing that. Right? So it doesn't matter what type of styling you want to do. It's a you can even split it not even evenly. Just do it like that, just so you can get used to drawing different types of faces. Right? It doesn't have to be like a pinup every time. You can just change it up and then just draw very different types of characters without much effort by just drawing different lines in different shapes and keeping within those boundaries. So character design becomes really simple because you can just straight up go abstract and you can just create characters from nothing. Right? Not concerning myself with the shape, divide something in thirds. If you want to do a profile, divide that in 4. And then just work in your shapes based on that. And just like that, you can create an endless amount of characters incredibly easy and also very accurately. Right? You don't have to be an expert at anatomy to be able to do this, but the more that you learn anatomy, the more you're going to be able to know what you're drawing. So it'll be a little bit easier to come up with more awesome stuff. Right? The more anatomy and perspective you know, the more you're going to be able to push these things. These simple lessons that I teach are very easy to apply to a lot of different things. Like you don't have to keep it to a certain style. You can straight up just go straight math into this, right? 4, 3. And then just draw your profiles within this little tiny area. And it'll just map out exactly the little squares that I'm drawing over right now. And you guys will have accurate proportions every time. Like, you just have to understand how the face works, right? It can be any shape. Any shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Cool. If this is the area for my face and my nose, my features have to fit within that first fourth. My ear will go after the second one, giving myself space. And then from there, connect to my jaw. and connect to the floor top of the head. And if you happen to have like hairstyles or whatever, it could be on top of this. Right? It does, like, it's a super easy way to draw profiles, but it's also pretty easy to draw that just from a front angle too. Instead of dividing it into 4 like we did here, we're only going to divide it in half, but we're still going to give ourselves our 3. So now this and this have to have the same shape, right? If you're drawing my nose is still going to be within here. My mouth has to be within here. So I can do anything I want mouth-wise. My ear is going to be around here because that's my feature zone. My eyes can be stylized in any way you want. And then I know that my forehead and my hairline have to be here. So let's give this guy Super Saiyan hair. Right? So I know that it's there. I already know the placement of it. Now I get to decide what type of design I want to do. When you stop guessing where things go, that's when your creative side comes out and you're able to actually enjoy like doing all the cool design choices that you guys want to do with your styles that you've learned over the years. But understanding where the things actually fall is quite important. In 3/4, I like to divide it into thirds, but I'm considering these two like the front, and then the last one is the width. Right? When you're looking at a shape as a 3/4, this is how I like to think of it. I still split it into 3, but one of these has to be facing a different direction, okay? Because that is just the way that our faces kind of work. From here, 3, nose, eyebrows, eyeline. My ear would be about halfway down the third one, but also down my feature zone. And then from here, my mouth can be any shape I want. In this case, let's make this guy yelling or something. My chin, and then that connects to my ear. And then I have a character. So in 3/4 view, we divide it into 3. So let's try it one more time. But one of them is going to be facing the other way. We're still going to divide this into 3, and we're going to draw all our features within this area. Okay. We're going to add a little bit more width because you're allowed to change the design from the sketch. You're allowed to add stuff and remove things from your sketches. You're not born and have to actually just follow exactly what you drew. You are allowed to not do that. And then here, my mouth, again, can be anything I want. My chin. If you're wondering how your mouth works with your face, this is normally how I like to figure it out. If I have my third, I'm going to have my nose canal, and then that nose canal is going to be like a little teardrop down to my chin. Right? And this is the area where your mouth goes. That is the limit of how your mouth works with your face. So if you have your thirds, you can make the mouth really big by adding that teardrop and making it really, really large. Keeping the idea that it's a teardrop, though, it helps you understand how that part of the face actually connects and how it works. Because this has roundness to it, right? So keeping it as a teardrop is a very easy way to remember that part. So we divide it into three. We come up with where our nose is supposed to go, and then our mouth is literally going to just be a teardrop. And then little by little, we just start applying all these things together, and we end up with a system where we can draw faces really, really easy. So when I'm drawing like an actual face, this would be about the speed that I would be going at it, especially if I'm at like a coffee shop or something like that. Let's say that I saw somebody with a hat and they had a beard and they had like some cool hair, some flannel, and then I wanted my feature zone to be right there. That's about the speed at which I would be drawing people in public. If I had more time, I would go in and add little details to add more depth, to add some humor, stuff like that, right? But that would be something around the likes of something that I would draw in public. If somebody was just like chilling with, like a beverage or something, it would be incredibly simple to just draw that profile. And then have them holding like a coffee cup or something like that. Drawing somebody that's waiting to get their coffee to do something like that is actually really, really good exercises because it makes you have to draw quick and you have to draw efficiently. You can't just willy-nilly it and like erase and go about it like that. You have to actually do it quickly. And believe it or not, like regardless of how it comes out, I bet you if you gave it to the person, they would absolutely love it. And they would just be like ecstatic and happy because they got drawn. There you go. All right. So, more people drawing is really fun. I like doing it whenever I go to the DMV, whenever I go like out to like bars or whenever I know that I need to be like around other people, I tend to bring like a little piece of paper so I can draw people. It's just really, really, really fun to do. So the rule of thirds is actually a really, really easy way to get into caricatures too. Because you can always you can start with your middle part. You can literally start by sections. You can draw like a really cool eyebrows and like your super cool eyes and concentrate on just getting this section perfect, right? And just get it like downright awesome to where you think it's amazing. And then that there's two more sections here. The eyes are probably really close to the edge of your face. So now you get to decide, okay, well, this section, how do I want this section? Do I want it like that? Maybe I want it a little bit more round. Because I know that only two things have to fit here: my chin, which is relatively small at the bottom, and then my mouth. That's the only two things that have to fit there. Okay? So if I can make those two fit there, cool. Awesome. And then on top, I'm like, okay, cool. Normally, this distance is going to be roughly the same distance as the top. Now, that's going to differ depending on what angle you are looking at, right? If you're looking at this angle like this, like with a camera, right? Let's have a camera. If we're looking at it like this, you're going to be looking at about the same distance from the top of your face and the bottom, right? This is still skewed, but you get the idea. If I'm looking at this from the bottom, right? If I'm looking at this from the bottom, this line right here, that same line, it's going to appear much higher. It's going to appear like it's like that, right? Even though it's in the same place as this one, now when you look at it, it's going to look like this. You're going to have a lot less of your top and a lot more of the bottom. Same thing happens when you do the same thing and you look at it from the top, right? What happens is you end up looking at it more like this. You would see a shadow and whatever, okay? But the same thing happens with heads. So if you're pointing your head up, right? If you're going to be looking up, then move your thirds up so that you have a little bit more accurate of a drawing. It's still just as easy to just move it up and then draw the thirds right there. Right? We only drew that 1/3, but now it looks like your character's looking up. But if you wanted to look down, do the same thing. Just move it down. And you have a little bit more forehead, a little bit more top of your head. But now your character looks like it's looking down. Right? So it's just a matter of understanding those basic concepts from basic perspective, right? The very basic concept of perspective is that as something gets closer to the edges, the lines get progressively closer. So if my eyes are normally right here, as you go and you draw your eyes progressively higher or lower, you start seeing what starts happening, right? You have to distort it a little bit. So this exercise is actually really simple to do too. Right? Essentially, what you're doing is you're just going to replicate what an eye would be like in each one of these angles. And then you can just learn how to draw eyes looking in different directions like that. The level of detail that you know how to render things in is kind of irrelevant if you don't know where to place your objects, right? You can draw like the most amazing eyeballs and you can make like the most hyper realistic stuff. But if you don't know where to put that whenever you are drawing, ah, man down. Let's see. Can you guys see that? All right. Hold on. 1 second. No, that's fine, I guess. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. There you go. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you're like really good at drawing one single feature of the face, right? Like, let's say that you're amazing at drawing eyeballs and you're like, ooh, cool. I'm the best eyeball drawer in the world. I draw all the eyeballs. I draw eyeballs on the front, I draw eyeballs on the side, I draw eyeballs everywhere. Let's say that you are an amazing, amazing eyeball drawer and you know how to draw up to there. Well, by using that same system that I taught you guys, the third system, you guys can break this down and come up with the rest of the face. So we already know that this and up until the nose is going to be one of our thirds, right? So I know that that shape is going to have to go down that way. From there, I already know where my other eyebrow is going to go because I want it to be an angry face. I match this eye to that other one. And then I just draw my nose within this area. Then I know that my bottom third is going to be my mouth, and I know that it's supposed to be like a little teardrop, right? It's supposed to be a little teardrop coming from the top of my nose canal. So now that I know this, I can draw a mouth. I know my chin is supposed to be down here. So now I have this whole side of the face perfectly mapped out. This side, from my cheekbone to my chin is one line, and then my jaw creates the other. This is my ear. And then I just need a forehead and hairline. So now I just created an entire face just from that eye. And the same thing here. I know that this feature zone is gonna be only 1/4 of the rest of my head, right? So I can divide this into 1, 2, 3, 4. Just make 4 lines. Boop-a-doop-a-doo. And I divide this into 3. So now that I have that, I know that my nose has to be within this area. My mouth has to be within this area, and my head is gonna be within this area. So now I can go in, draw my features, and just finish the face. I can add some hair and stuff. Because I just broke it down into like the most simple mathematical equation that my brain could actually make it work in. Right, so that's like that's an interesting way of doing it. It's like it's just a non-complex approach to drawing. Like, you don't even need to know how to draw a feature. Practice with just boxes if you want, right? Practice with just splitting a box in 3, adding eyes, eyebrows, and a nose within a shape. And then do one that's bigger. And see the difference. Make one that's fatter. See the difference. And then you'll start seeing like that actual purpose and like concepts behind character design, right? once you start doing more complex shapes, let's see what happens. Let's say that we have our three parts, right? But I want this top part to be more triangular. I want this middle part to be squished in. And I want this top part to be more round. So by breaking that stuff down, I have created a more complex character than I would have had if I just kept everything the same. See what I mean? It makes it a little bit more of a game. Let's say I want this round, but I want this really jaggedy. And then I want this very boxy. There you go, boxy's fine. And something like that could easily turn into something pretty cool. Like a tiki mug or something. So it's a matter of like, once you understand the concept of how something is constructed, then you have the ability to deconstruct it any way you want. Right? Once you understand that something's supposed to have 1, 2, 3 parts, now those 3 parts are completely malleable to whatever you want to do with it. You are now in control of each one of those sections, and you can do whatever you want to them to create an infinite amount of characters. You can do whatever you want when you understand what you're drawing. It becomes a little bit less daunting if you just actually approach things in little steps, right? If you approach things in smaller, more manageable sizes, everything becomes a little bit easier. The problem with everyone trying to draw heads is that they're trying to tackle all the anatomy of what you're drawing at once. Like, you're trying to tackle on the entirety of a human structure, and that is really hard. Like, actually understanding all the concepts that go into an actual skeletal system is incredibly complex, and it takes a while to be able to learn that, right? And simplifying it even takes an extra level of complexity, because normally it's really, really hard to take a basic concept that's already so complex, like a skeletal system. And it is complex, it's hard. Like, it's not easy to learn how to draw a skeletal system, like skulls, and not saying like doing it like all stylized. Like, actually trying to draw an accurate system is very, very hard. So what we normally do as artists is we come up with simplifications of these systems, right? Understanding how to simplify this gives us an understanding of what we're supposed to be using this for. But for example, like, and I'm gonna give you guys a challenge right here, right? I'm gonna give you guys a massive challenge. And if you guys are not able to do this as a challenge, I want you guys to hit that little share button. If you cannot do it, please hit the share button. If you can, hey, that's awesome. So quick test for you guys right out there. Let's say we have our actual skeletal system up until here, right? So, quick question for you guys. Where in that eye socket does your eye sit? Is it closer to the top? Is it closer to the bottom? Where is the eye supposed to sit within here? We know that this is our feature zone because it's where our bottom of our nose and the top of our eyebrow. In the middle? No, it is not in the middle. It is not in the middle. Nope, 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 nope. It's not in the middle. If you have your eye socket, right? Your eye sits actually really close to the top. Your eyebrow is the top of the eye socket, and any distance that you see between this top of your eyebrow and your bottom of your eye, or the top of your eye, that's your eyelid. If you see any distance there, it's because of the eyelid. It's not because of anything else. Your eye is actually really close to the top of your eye socket. Like I said, whatever eyelashes you decide to put on your character is going to give that space right there. But your eyeball sits relatively high on your eye socket. Okay, this bottom part right here, normally it's filled in with collagen or with fatty tissue, and it normally consists also of your cheek. Your cheek is what your cheek muscle and stuff like that is normally what fills in all this area. Okay, that is why when you smile, your cheek pushes up and it covers a little bit of your eye. That is what happens when you smile. Your cheek is pushing up, so it creates that. Now, so since this is at the top, you have your eyebrow at the top, you have your eye, and you have, like I said, all the spacing you get from here is because of your eyebrow, your eyelid. This is the bottom, this part right here. That's normally when you get those eye lines. Your nose is going to come out from there. So that is essentially how it sits on your face. I learned more from Rodgon than actual school. Yeah, boy. Well, you know, it makes a difference, the level of detail that people actually go to be able to teach someone, right? Like, I actually enjoy teaching. I thoroughly love it. I love teaching. So I am quite aware of the things that people struggle with, and I try to actively fix those elements within my teaching. Like, I don't assume that people know what I'm drawing before I teach, right? I don't assume that people are knowledgeable in the basic concepts, even things like perspective and anatomy. Like, I don't assume that people know even how to draw a sphere. That's why I explain it every time, right? That's why I explain all the ways that you guys can get to these levels of understanding. Like, understanding how to draw a sphere is a very, very, very important part of it. Understanding how to draw basic shapes, front and back, in general, is going to be a daunting task for most of you because you guys hate perspective. But the moment that you start thinking of perspective not as a random thing, right? And it's not like, oh, I'm going to draw buildings. I don't want to draw buildings. No, when you start thinking of anatomy, as a way to understand how to manipulate your basic shapes, like your legs, your arms, your bodies, right? The moment that you start understanding how to move those basic shapes, that is when you actually activate your creativity, because now you can actually start moving things in space and make things really cool, because you can actually understand how to build a human body, for example. Right? And you can start from any part of the body once you understand how a body is built. You don't have to be constrained to, oh, do I start with my head? Do I start with my body? Do I start with my arms? Do I start with my whatever? No, at that point you can just draw from any angle you want. Like you could start with a belly button, and if I know where that belly button goes, which I do know, because it goes into that little jelly bean in between my rib cage and my hip bones, right? If I know where that belly button goes, I can create an entire body around that. Mostly because I am not constrained to drawing something from a certain angle, because I understand where things connect. So the more that you understand anatomy, which is the boring part, right, of drawing, the more you understand anatomy, the easier it is to draw things with anatomy in them. And that includes characters, that includes animals, that includes every sort of thing that most people want to actually achieve. I am not a magician. I am not a magical, like, talented human being that just is like bragging about this. You guys can go back and you guys can survey all my artwork over the last 6-7 years. You will notice that I very, very slowly developed the ability to draw like this, right? And it took a lot of time. But the moment that it did, it just exponentially, like, it just explodes. And then you start combining all your elements, for example, your face in thirds, and then you start combining the rest into more interesting shapes, positions, and stuff like that. And even if you don't know perfect anatomy, by just knowing where things connect, you can draw a lot of cool stuff. You can be a pro and not even know, like, the basic concept of muscle structure, as long as you understand how things overlap and you study enough of just the basic shapes that you need to draw. Now, it's ideal that you actually know anatomy. Don't go about like saying that Rod said you don't need to learn anatomy. No, like, learning anatomy is essentially the difference between being a person that wants to draw really cool things and a person that can draw really cool things. Like, things like this, to me, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have told you that would be impossible for me to draw. Right? I would have told you, like, this is an impossible task for me to draw. Like, I just don't know enough anatomy. I don't know. I've never been really good at it. Like, and then just a couple years of practicing led me to be able to understand this to an extent that I can draw pretty much any pose, any situation, just from a basic shape really quickly. Like there is literally pretty much nothing that I can't visualize and try to draw now. In cool poses and cool scenarios and cool situations. And now it's just a matter of seeing what I can actually put forth with my imagination that's going to help me create my legacy or whatever you feel like calling whatever I am leaving behind. You're like drawing like a logo for like a restaurant or something. A chef. Thirds. I don't know. But you can use this knowledge to whatever extent you feel like doing. And however amount of time you spend on an actual project, you'll just be happy to know that you are going to stop second guessing yourself about like the distances in your face or how much space should I leave between the mouth and the nose. All that stuff just becomes a little bit easier when you don't have to think about it. Right? You can just focus on drawing and you can focus on creating and you can focus on just opening up that mindset to like an even broader spectrum because you don't have to worry so much about knowing where the elements go in your drawings. Right? You can just have fun once you understand a little bit more of the concepts of anatomy. You can have a ton of fun by applying both of your concepts together, right? And then you can start doing all those really cool drawings that all the people that you look up to do. Like people like the master, like Kim Jong Un, like Kim Jong Il. Is it Kim Jong Il that like passed away recently? Sorry, like I'm really sorry if I'm getting his name wrong. Like, but like he was an excellent master of drawing freehand, like storytelling. He was just an absolute master at it, and he did not require even a ballpoint pen to do this. Like he would just do it with a brush, right? That guy was just intense. That guy was amazing. It's unfortunate that he died like super early. But it's just really fun as well to just take a basic shape, something like this, and then use that as a basis for the rest of your character. Yeah, it's just a matter of understanding the basic shapes and then understanding the anatomy behind it. So that the reason that so many people like tell you that your foundations are perspective and anatomy is not because they want you to learn how to do perspective planes and shit like that, right? Like that's not the reason why they're asking you to learn how to do this. Like this type of perspective, like the perspective plane stuff, is a good way to understand these basic shapes. So it's a good way to start, right? It's a good way to start learning. But this is just the kiddie stuff. Like this is literally like the entry level stuff that you should just know. Like this is not even like something that I should be telling someone at the beginner level. At a beginner level, you should know 1 and 2 point perspective. 1 and 2 point perspective are just, you just need to know it. Like it's not a matter of you haven't taken a class, you haven't done that. No, it's kind of like holding a pencil. Like you need to learn how to hold a pencil to be able to draw even the most basic common thing. So if you don't know how to set up a basic sphere, for example, or a simple box, and you don't understand the concept of perspective in the way in which things going into the distance diminish, right? Everything's not spaced out the same. So as if you understand that concept, that very basic concept of something getting smaller as it gets into the distance because it's curving around, once you know that, everything else just becomes easy. Everything else is just gameplay. And once you understand how to draw a proper beanbag and actually know how to divide it properly in like halves and split it and see it from front and back, this is going to turn into the most easy body structure you have ever drawn in your life. A simple beanbag turns into the best, easiest body structure that it is to draw out there. Like no joke, you can take this and you can turn that into anything you want. It can be like hot, sexy ladies. Could be big, muscly men. It could be whatever you want. But once you understand that beanbag shape and you make that into a body, woo, it changes everything. Like it honestly changes everything. It just makes everything make sense. Right? But in order to understand this and this and these things that I'm drawing, you need to understand the very basic concept of drawing something from the front and from the back. Right? Front, back. Even if it's the same shape, by doing that differently, you can get different results. So in this case, let's draw one that goes across and it has a flat surface. Right? But I can do this as a sphere, and this gives me two completely different shapes. So understanding all of these very basic concepts of slicing into shapes, right? Or cutting into spheres. All these concepts are important in other aspects of your drawing, like knowing how to split a sphere into hemispheres, for example, is the easiest way to learn how to draw an eyeball. Because that's all it is. An eye is just two hemispheres on a sphere, with the upper one being a little bit darker, and just draw the rest of the shape. That is all an eyeball is. Even if it's closed, it's just that. That's the eyeball. An eyeball is just a sphere with two hemispheres. right? So as you go about the rest of your day today, I want you guys to think a little bit about what you learned how to draw when you were younger and how and why you draw it the way you draw it. Challenge yourself to unlearn the habits that you have come to accumulate that have just been style based, right? If you're drawing your shapes without, if you can't go into your drawing, like let's say, I don't know, let's go into this one, right? Let's go into this guy. If I can't go in here and I can't trace the surfaces of my shape to see the three-dimensional aspects of my body and my shapes and my facial structure and my anatomy, like if I can't do that, then what I need to practice is doing my very basic spheres and then doing this, tracing the surface. Then go and change the shape a little bit and then trace that surface. See what happens the more complex you get. And when you're able to get to a full beanbag, which incorporates one side that's curved and one that's not, and you're able to do that properly, then you should be able to go into any of these, anything you've drawn before, and you can actually check it. Let's do it with a couple of my own drawings. Let's see, where's one that has actual detail? Cool, let's do it here. Okay, so let's see if this actually like holds up. Let's do it with this guy right here. So this shape is cool, that works. That works too. These two more complex shapes, they work as well. These feet, I like to make it more like that shape. That works fine. We're going on to our torso. That works fine. Going on to our shoulders, onto our chest, into a rib cage, and all these have their own little depth and all their little shapes. Each one has its own curvatures and its own little angles. Our bicep, our hand, our wrist, forearm. Yeah, that works. That's working nicely. Thirds. We could also, just by doing that, we can add a face really easy if you wanted to. Right? So if you can confidently go into your drawing and see your basic shapes, then that means that you actually are visualizing things the way you're supposed to, right? But if you're having trouble doing this with your own drawings, like if you don't know which way this like leg muscle curves, right, or how this connects, then you need to work more on your perspective. That is just more, you have to understand how the basic shapes move in space. You just have to. It's not even a maybe. Like you just need to do that. Like it's, you just don't think about it. Practice a little bit every day, and eventually in like a couple months you will actually understand it a little bit more. All it needs to do is it just needs to click once. That's all. If it clicks once, that's it. That's all you need it to do. One time. One single time. If you can understand any basic concept once, it's going to become infinitely easier to take in everything that you draw from that point on too. All right. Oh shit. Ah! The TV is like attacking me. Yeah. Anyways. So yeah, like that is something that you need to understand so that you guys can get better, so you guys can like actually tackle things the way that you need to. Before you can do that, right? Let's do it even. Let's do it with this guy over here. Even with a simple shape like this, I can start breaking it down even further. And by breaking it down further, that gives me all the aspects of my face that I need. Right? The more that you break down and you're able to visualize these things, things just come into light a little bit easier. Things just start popping in place. Things will just like look like they fit a little bit better. It'll look like it goes there. And once that starts clicking, it becomes a very, very easy thing to just keep going. And then just eventually you'll be able to just do any way, shape, or form and just break it down as much. You know, it just becomes automatic at one point. And all you got to do to change the styling is just to change the proportions of your thirds. But that just becomes, you know, something that you can play with down the line. So let's recap what we learned today. And if you guys are interested in what helping, and you guys are interested in being like, you know, the awesome people that you guys are, what you guys can do is you guys can buy my books. If you guys have bought my books and you guys don't need to do anything else, you guys have done enough. If you guys already purchased anything from me, I'm so incredibly like thankful. Yeah, so go subscribe to my YouTube channel if you guys want to learn more. If you guys want to actually help me get to that 80,000 point subscribers thing, so that I can actually get my verification from YouTube, and I can be the coolest uncle in the world, because I'll be like the YouTuber uncle that my nieces and nephews think that I am. So I would really like that. So today we talked a little bit about faces and the rule of thirds, and how all faces can be broken down into 3 parts in general. Right? If we have 3 parts, we can break it down and make it a little bit easier for ourselves. Because one of those parts consists of most of our features. Most of our features fall within a third of our face. And also in the front fourth of our face. That is a very important concept that you can take and use to learn how to do caricatures. You can learn how to do more comic-y stuff, more pin-up-y stuff, more chibi stuff. Whichever way that you want to approach it, you can, you know, take that concept and apply it to any way that you want. It's just a very interesting and nice, fun concept that I would like to impart with you guys, because it helped me when I found it out, right? If it helps me, odds are it'll help other people as well. And I personally really enjoy sharing my knowledge with everyone. So whenever I learn something, guess what? I teach it. Third, 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 thirds. All your thirds. Oh, we talked a little bit about how to draw an eye, how to practice drawing an eye better. Um, let's see. We talked about why anatomy is important to learn. We talked about the importance of actual anatomy structure within your shapes. And I tested you guys a little bit about your knowledge about where things are supposed to fall in the face. And some of you guys failed. But it's okay because now we know better, right? Now we understand. So now we don't make that same mistake. So now that you know where something is supposed to fall, you don't ever make that fumble again. All right. I think with that, though, we are going to call it a night. Hope you guys had a wonderful time. Like I said, if you guys do want to support, just go sign up to my YouTube channel because that is my goal for this month. I want to get to the point where I am at least in the 50,000s for in a year to get to those 80,000 subscribers on YouTube. I've been on there for way too long and I don't have that plaque yet. So help me out. Go do that if you guys want. If you guys did learn anything, if you guys do feel inclined to share what you have drawn tonight, please share with me at Rodgon the Artist on Instagram so that I can actually reshare it with the world. If you would like to see your artwork being seen by a couple 100,000 people, please send me a story with my name linked on it, and then I can easily share it with the world. So until then, thank you guys so much for keeping me company. Thank you for being my drawing buddies. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night. And I will see you guys very soon for another video, another lesson, and another thing to put into our skill sets. Woohoo! So talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful night.